Welcome back, and let's take a look at how we actually construct a schedule. What we're going to do first is move all the detailed tasks onto the project schedule. Where do they come from? They come from the WBS. We're going to add task durations. So specific task durations, we're going to put those on the schedule. And we're going to arrange the tasks into sequences and simultaneous relationships that we think work the best. Then we're going to either add the start of the project or the completion of the project. We add the start of the project, we'll schedule the project from the beginning on through. If we start at the completion of the project, we'll schedule backwards to see when we should start the project. Hopefully, we don't find it should have started 3 months before today. We're also going then to add the early and late starts and finishes to each task. And you can put whatever other information you want to at some other point after you get the structure for the schedule put together and we get the times put in there. Let's look at an example of what this is actually all about. We're going to start with our Go to Work WBS. On here we have some times. We have converted these times on our WBS to durations. They may have started as work, which we will talk about in the next module, but we're going to schedule with durations, so these have all been changed to durations. It takes 10 minutes to get out of bed. We're kind of slow these days. We hit the snooze alarm a couple of times, and we don't just jump right out of bed like we used to. We have to think about the day's tasks, what's going on today. That's going to take us 5 minutes to do. So these are all the durations for these tasks. When we put our schedule together, we're going to find that the headings go away on a network diagram. We don't put the headings for tasks. We're not going to get out of bed, review the day's tasks, and then go start the day. Get out of bed and review the day's tasks are start the day. So start the day isn't going to be a task we put on our schedule. These are the tasks that go on the schedule. We also notice that the last heading out there, get into the car to drive to work, well, that one doesn't go away. Why? There are no subtasks underneath there. The WBS does not need to be broken down into the same level of detail across the entire WBS. So it might go 2 levels deep, some might go 9 levels deep. Doesn't make any difference. Whatever you need to do on that part of the WBS is what you do. We're going to turn this into a go-to-work network diagram. So we're actually going to construct the schedule here. We'll use our go-to-work WBS for a little mini project here. We're going to start with an activity on node format. And it's, like we said, that's often a good planning tool. If we choose, we can turn that into a Gantt chart. We'll start with the network diagram first. Not all project managers use network diagrams and Gantt charts. Most project managers use only one of these, and most of the time project managers use Gantt charts. If we're going to use a network diagram, again, which is a really good planning tool and especially a good tool to use with your project team, this is the building block. We have a box here that has the activity, the duration for that activity, early start, early finish, and late finish. Early start, the earliest time this task could ever possibly start in this project. The early finish, the earliest this could possibly ever finish if everything went exactly right. Late start, the latest we could ever start this project and still get start this task and still get this project done on time. The late finish is the latest we could ever finish this task and still have the project come in on time. We need that information, and then we can put together a schedule. We'll start to arrange our tasks, put them together in whatever order we think they go in. So we're going to get out of bed, and the next thing we think we're going to do is review the day's tasks. We think also, while we're reviewing the day's tasks, we can also shower. One of those males who could actually multitask, you could think and shower at the same time. Where do all of these tasks come from? They come right from the WBS that we had before. We just move them right from the WBS onto the schedule. What we're doing is we're just going to tear the WBS to pieces and put it together in a different format now. A milestone. We noticed that one of the tasks on here, get in the car, had 0 duration. Milestones are 0 duration tasks that designate some sort of a significant point in the project. So here, getting in the car is a significant point in the project, so it shows up as a milestone. It's also a 0 duration task. This is our entire schedule for getting out of the house. Waking up in the morning and we're in the car. We're not at work yet. This is only part way. So this is just the beginning of our whole journey to get to work. Right now, we're sitting in the driveway, in the car. Now we got to get from there to the car, to the office from that point. This is what the whole thing looks like when it's all filled in. What does this show us? It shows us the relationship of the tasks. It shows us which tasks lead to which others. It also shows us where the critical path is. If we look at this, we look at the early start, late start, the early finish, late finish of each of these 5 tasks. The early start, late start is the same, and the early finish, late finish is the same on each of these. Those are critical path tasks. For example, shower could start as early as minute 10, has to start at minute 10. Could be done as early as minute 25, has to be done by minute 25. There's no extra room in any of those tasks. It also shows us, as well as the critical path, where we have some float time in the project. So if we look at these 3 tasks across the bottom, these 3 tasks across the bottom all have an extra 5 minutes of float to share. They don't each have 5 minutes of float. That whole group of tasks has 5 minutes of float. So the total float is 5 minutes for that group of tasks. If the first task uses up all 5 minutes, the other tasks don't have any float left over. There's no free float for them. Total float, the 5 minutes across the 3 tasks here. Total float, whatever's left over after the preceding tasks have used up that float. Float time. Remember, there's the total float we looked at and the free float. We can see both of those on our project schedule now. We look through here, how much free float is left over. This also can be displayed as a Gantt chart. Here's the same project. This project and this project, very same project, just different views. This is a good planning tool. We're starting to put things together, putting all this together, see how all these tasks relate to each other. It's a good way for a group of people to work together to put a project schedule together. This is a pretty good way now to take a look at the project during executing and how things are moving along. We can look at any specific date along here and see how we're doing. So we started off with our Go to Work WBS and we rolled it into our Gantt chart. When we looked at our WBS, it has the headings on here, and if we go into a Gantt chart, we can also put those headings on here. The headings typically do not go on a network diagram, but on a Gantt chart you're often going to see those, and those are those big dark bars across a group of tasks, and they're called summary tasks. That's that heading, like start the day, clothing, food. Those actually show up on a Gantt chart, typically. Here in our Gantt chart we also see the critical path of the project, and we see the float time. All of those red tasks are the critical path of the project, ending with a milestone that on a Gantt chart is a little diamond-shaped piece. And the float time across there shows up in blue. We've told it we want to see it in different color. Gantt chart, what do we see on a Gantt chart? Early start, early finish, task duration. The connecting lines that we see on there, they're exactly the same connecting lines that we've seen before. Either a dependency line or a predecessor line. If we say this task is followed by another task, that task is dependent. If we say this task had something that happened before, then we talk about a predecessor line. Software, there's a lot of good ones out there. Microsoft seems to be the main one. MS Project seems to be the main one that people use. There are other ones, and there are a lot of clones of MS Project right now. We have a baseline, and we've seen some examples of both of those. That's what we just were looking at. Baseline. Once we get our schedule laid out, we have a baseline for the project. You don't change the baseline. The only way you change the baseline is if you go back and redefine the project. Baseline stays the same, and now we use that to judge how we're doing with the rest of the project as it moves forward. Human resource constraints. We're going to first lay out our schedule. We're going to determine our critical path based on task relationships. And then we might find that because we can't get some of the people we need on the specific dates we need them, that changes our schedule. And so now, when we're finally done with the critical path, it's built on task relationships and the availability of people to do the tasks at certain times. What we might find is that when we lay our schedule out, we have a project that takes longer than the amount of time we have available. So this one, the earliest we can start this project and when it has to be done is longer than the amount of time that we have. We have some options available to us. One is crashing the project. Crashing the project means that we shorten up the durations that we have on individual tasks. Fast-tracking the project means we're going to do things simultaneously, concurrently, in parallel, that we thought we had to do in sequence before. The problem with crashing the project, it can increase the costs on the project. A problem with fast-tracking the project, it can increase the risks on the project. There's one other way to do this, which is reduce the scope of the project, and also a second way that these are not the preferred ways. These are the alternate ways. Reduce the scope of the project or reduce the quality. Just take some things out of the project or reduce the quality that we have for the project overall. So those are our ways to change our project if it doesn't fit into the time frame allotted. Crash the project, fast track the project, reduce the scope, or as a last resort, reduce the quality.